Don't forget that your skin is your largest organ, and the sun can be your skin's worst enemy. Dermatologist-recommended Neutrogena products offer the ultimate protection for your skin. From makeup remover wipes to Hydro Boost Water Gel Facial Moisturizer, BJ's has your entire lineup of Neutrogena skincare products. And now through December 3rd, save $4 on any Neutrogena product at BJ's. Love your skin back and save now through December 3rd, only at BJ's.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
Hello, and welcome to the No Fruit Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Maurice.
And this is Kafa.
We thank you for tuning in today. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Hope that you all are doing well, staying safe, and staying sane.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot going on in
Most
this
definitely.
world, and I come to you a little bit heavy-hearted, I guess, just with everything that's going on spiritually and within the spiritual realm, as well as the political realm, and then as well as just within the churches, things that I'm hearing over the waves. It's a little heavy-hearted.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
And my heavy-heartedness kind of goes towards some of our leadership. And again, that's across all those areas.
Right.
Tonight we'll find out later on whether or not our senior in high school will go back to school full time, that the school board will make that decision. So we're leaning on that leadership to share that information.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much to unpack, Maurice.
You're right.
I've heard several things about ministers of the gospel outside of their marriage and dating people within the congregation and producing, it's just so much going on. And now also with the political scene, just all that's going on with our leaders and them going back and forth on different topics and things that they have made promises on, and now they're backpedaling. So it's just a whole lot of mess.
Mm-hmm.
To unpack it is just a whole lot, and it's just heavy on me. I'm just concerned about tomorrow. And I know, God holds tomorrow, and I'm prayerful and thankful that He does, but I'm still human.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still a parent.
Right.
I'm still a wife.
Right.
I still am an employee and working,
Yeah.
I'm still all of these things. I'm still a believer, but I have to be a little bit transparent with you all. This is just, it's just heavy. It's just heavy.
So I just want to read something. Jeremiah, the 23rd chapter, says, "Woe to the shepherds who destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture, declares the Lord." So that's exactly what's happening right now.
Right.
We are all being scattered. And the question is, how do we bring it back?
Right.
At this point in time, I do believe, Kaif, I'm with you, that understanding that the virus that we're dealing with, COVID-19, if you're paying attention to what's going on, I mean, we live in the Philadelphia metropolitan area, and they're saying that it's increasing. At one point in time, like in September, it was a moderate increase. Now they're saying is jumping. Like now you could tell we're going to go through the second wave right now. And unfortunately, I guess because I have this app, the Citizens app on my phone, so I see the numbers literally every day, along with all the other criminal activities and things like that. So, that's a little unnerving. And then as you're stating, I'm sorry, and then keep it on that track. So the fact that our child may be going back to school, physically, I mean, he's in school right now for his technical school physically. The one thing about that is now he's on a school bus, which, I did not feel comfortable with, but there's not many people on a bus. So he's allowed to social distance on a school bus. And when it comes to his classroom, he said they're able to social distance in the classroom. Now, when now keep in mind that there's a bunch of school districts there at that particular school. So the reality is you don't know who has what from where. Like there's no way to control that environment. So then let's go next. Right now our daughter, she is in college, but she's virtual. And just so happens she attends the same school that you are an employee, so I give her the opportunities to go and be with you those 2 days because you're only doing 2 days a week. And my main thing is being in the house can drive you stir crazy,
right?
100% of the time. So no, go with your mom. Technically in a controlled environment. You don't have all your coworkers there at the same time that you're there. So no, that's a little more controlled, right?
Right.
So, so I'm harping on that right now because unfortunately our leadership of our country has, as we well know, supposedly had contracted it, and now all of a sudden he's cured. He's negative. Same thing with his wife and everything else.
And his son.
Right.
A lot of his staff. And, so again, it's just interesting how all of this is unfolding. It's so surreal. I don't think that any movie or any book could have written all of this the way that it's unfolding.
Right.
It's just remarkable.
And so the next part that I wanted to touch on before we, I'm building up, I guess I feel like it's a sermon, right?
Gotta get that plate out again.
Right. Because the next part of this is, as you're talking about our leadership, right now, again, as I stated about the being in your, confined to your home, right? Well, 6-8 months of this, again, will drive you stir crazy, right? So, unfortunately, at this point in time, when you have our ecumenical, I don't know, I'm saying the word incorrectly, but our leaders that are church leaders. It doesn't have to be pastors, but it could just be church leaders in general. Unfortunately, because people need more comforting, that can be utilized negatively or manipulated negatively, right? Correct. So we do, let's be all the way honest, let's be real, that some of these type of activities have been going on over a period of time. Unfortunately, it's becoming more and more put out there, to be honest.
Apparent, yes.
Yes. And the reality is that because you don't know what everybody is going through, and sometimes in that moment of being a comforter, unfortunately does go somewhere else. It could, if you put yourself in that predicament, right?
But the Bible says that the Lord will always make a way out.
And I totally 100% agree. I'm not going to go against
no matter
that.
whatever the devil tempts you with, there is a word, and that God will make a way of an escape. He'll make a way out. And so again, it hurts my heart that people are falling to their flesh so much.
So when you have leadership overall, and something that I had listened to earlier this week that speaks about our leadership overall, and we're talking about our United States government overall. We're talking about all three parts of the government, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial, that they have, in people's minds, they fall in love more with money. They fall more in love with power. They fall more in love with party. And it's interesting because I saw something else that said, our leadership our current leadership is being backed by the Bin Ladens, whom the United States of America was totally against just a couple of years ago, right? So we have a lot of things that's going on that does not make sense. We're being fed a lot of information that does not make sense. And we're getting bombarded with just information. And unfortunately, it's causing mass confusion. Mass confusion. And it's funny how the church overall, they are those that had started to be a part of and want to follow a little bit more of our current leadership. Quite a few of them are backing down. Even so, there are a few pastors that I was reading somewhere that said that they're actually, because their members are following the president, they have stopped pastoring their church. I was like, wow. And, and that was in the Midwest. So let's think about that for a second. What we have gone through these last 3 years plus has been, I think, an eye opener for what the United States of America has been, period. A true cover has been pulled back. At what point in time, us as leaders, because Kafa, you and I are a leader, we're leading this discussion tonight, right?
That's right.
So at what point in time do we show really what the example is? When do we speak up against what's going on? Because for quite some time, I've been really quiet. Overall, I've been quiet. And it's really been bothering me because, because everyone has an opinion and most are expressing their opinion. I just don't want to be lost in the sauce with everyone else. I want to make sure that what I'm saying is, being heard and not just thrown out there. But, I want to say that at this point in time, we really need to pray. We really need to fast. And we need to truly understand what's going on. And how is this, this literal attack of the enemy, and this goes, and when I say the enemy, I want y'all to take it from a spiritual perspective. And this right here, what I'm saying to you, I'm not coming from a Christian perspective or Islamic. I'm coming from just a pure spiritual perspective. When do we get right? Because I'm not going to say, granted, I am a Christian. born and raised in a black church. So I'm not saying that I'm not pushing Christ or anything like that. I'm just coming from a pure spiritual perspective and not trying to, because once we get into all that, we start causing divisions, right?
Right.
So at this point in time, I'm making a honest request of, just from a spiritual perspective, how do we reel this all back? And I'm sorry, Cov, I know I went on a tirade and went all crazy or whatever else, but, because I know that some of my, Christian leaders that may be listening to this, they're like, Maurice, you wrong, and you should be pushing. Listen, I think at this time, it's for all people to get together.
Right.
Jews, Gentiles, Pharisees, Sadducees, I think all of us need to get together, period.
Under the human race.
Right.
Under the human race. So with all that, I guess, once we do some self-evaluation, I guess that's what you're kind of saying, Maurice, that first we have to do some self-evaluation and figure out who we are and what's going on in our world, and not so much looking and pointing the finger, but kind of looking at ourselves. So just a little bit, let's talk about what are the good characteristics of a leader? What are the characteristics that we should have as ourselves in order to get over this, to get through this, like you said, to have some hope.
Right.
So some of the characteristics, I think, with a leader, they have to be connected to God.
Mm-hmm.
And I know everybody's not, like you said, all spiritual and wrapped up into it, but God, from what we understand and from whom we are, that God started it all,
mm-hmm.
that he has all power.
Right.
So as a leader, you're in power. So why not be connected to the one with all power? So I would say one of the characteristics of a good leader is to be connected to God and hopefully be God chosen, because everybody's not chosen to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also sometimes why things kind of go awry, because everybody wants to step up into a leadership role. And I think for me, I see it a lot with some of the churches we've come from, where everybody is on the path to be a pastor.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I said that to you years and years ago, that,
right.
Well, where are the teachers and where are the, other people within the pulpit as, staff? Like, everyone doesn't have to be a pastor,
right,
in order to bless God's people.
Mm-hmm.
I do recall conversations of people saying they wanted to be a pastor because they could wear nice suits. And, we were young.
Right.
Just in high school. But even with that, that's not a reason to pick that as your career goal, as your lifelong mission.
But see, I think some of that, and I don't mean to cut you off, you could jump right back in. Mm-hmm. But I think what happens is that, unfortunately, there's no, especially when it comes to young men, from a church perspective, what do we have to look forward to? What is our what I want to say, influence, or our role model, I guess, because everyone, sit there and say, pastor, 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 and so, with you looking up to that individual, it's like, hey, I want to be in that place. I want to be, because everybody overall, especially for the community that we've grown up in, for those of us that did not have our father at home, right now I'm talking about those of us that are not PKs. Mm-hmm. For those of us that didn't have our father at home, that was our father figure. So to some degree, you kind of want to be like your dad. To some degree, some of us that have been missing love in our lives, one way or the other, that's one way to get that love and admiration and sense of belonging, those type of things. Because unfortunately, and I had this conversation with someone else before about there are some times where people they feel very, very important in church because they're not important anywhere else in their life.
Correct.
And the church allows you to be like that.
And the church doesn't, you don't necessarily have to put a resume together. You don't necessarily have to interview for a position.
Right.
Because there's so many positions. And
Right.
the church is always saying, the laborers are few.
Right.
So they're always looking for people who are willing to do. And there's some ministries, the kitchen ministry, you might not be able to just step in and help out. But there's certain places that, hey, they're always looking for folks.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the leadership needs to be able to understand, again, being connected with God, who is right for what position. Because at the end of the day, they're not just representing your church, your denomination, they're representing God.
Right.
So if you're going to be in the food pantry and throwing food at people, that's not a good representation of God. If you're going to be in, the prayer ministry and going out into the streets and praying for people, but then talking about them behind their backs, as soon as you get around the corner and get back in your car,
mm-hmm.
that's not for you either,
mm-hmm.
So, but that goes to another thing within leadership. They have to be good shepherds. And, I know we don't have many shepherds around in 2020, but a job of a shepherd is dirty.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. People want to be leaders and don't realize that that's a dirty job.
And I think one of the other things that when you talk about being dirty,
mm-hmm.
when you think about John, the 13th chapter, and people are like, Maurice, what are you talking about? Like, where are you going with all this? So in John, the 13th chapter, I'm going to read to you the 12th through the 15th verses.
All right.
And it says, when he had
Zicam knows that when you live life to the fullest, you never want to let a cold slow you down. With Zicam's cold shortening products, you can actually shorten colds when taken at the first sign. And with the winter chill in the air, you need the #1 cold shortening brand to help shorten a cold when taken at the first sign this season. Because you should never let a cold stop you from missing out on your favorite moments of the season. Find Zicam in your local cold and flu aisle.
washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, "Do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, and you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do just as I have done to you."
Mm-hmm.
So, in that you're talking about being dirty. Unfortunately, the feet are one of the dirtiest places, right?
And in those days, they wore these little open-toe sandals.
Yeah.
And, streets were not paved.
The Moses 3000s.
They were not paved streets.
Right.
And there were not buses and cars to take you hither and there. So you walked.
Right.
So for the fact that, and washing of the feet was something usually that servants did.
Mm-hmm.
And your feet were so dirty that you didn't even want to really bring that into the house. Like you had to kind of do some of that prior to coming in. So the fact that Jesus dealt down that low and, like you said, got that dirty,
mm-hmm.
To wash the feet of folks and said, if I'm doing it, you should do it too.
Right.
If I care that much for you and I'm that submissive and I'm that passionate, then you should be all these things as well. And like you said, I don't know that we have that in our leadership right now.
Very much so.
I don't know that they care much more about their brother, their children, their spouse, let alone their sheep being the body of whomever, their church members or the overall citizens of the United States. I don't think that anybody really, especially with, like you said, within the government, that has that much passion. As much as they want to say that they're leaning, to the right and they're sticking by the word of God, but you ain't doing that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, another thing that a good leader says, along with shepherding the people, they need to care for those who don't have.
Right.
Care for the sick. Care for the poor. And right now, it's like you're trying to take health care away from people. Like, do you not care for people who are sick? Like, what are they supposed to do?
Right.
Where are they supposed to go? It's just really, really interesting. I mean, I know, hey, it all adds up and there's dollars behind it all and we have to figure all of that out. But if the Bible says that we should care for the sick and for the poor, then, I mean, that's all that Jesus went around doing, was healing the sick from city to city. That's what he did. So I don't understand if our political leaders say that they are Bible believing and Bible fearing individuals, why it's so hard for them to care for the sick.
Again, I think some of that is the love of money. Because as we just looked at a video that talked about how there's a pharmaceutical company that's being sued over what? Medicine, right? And people becoming addicted to it and things like that. And we're not putting any slander out there or anything like that. Like, you could do the research. That's what's out there right now. Maybe that's true, not true, but that's what's, again, we're being pumped with so much information that it makes almost any and everybody look bad right now.
Right.
Like, it's almost like you don't know who to trust. You go from, you can't trust your leadership that's sitting in the White House. You can't trust your elected officials. You can't trust, those that, you see on an every Sunday basis, from even a spiritual perspective. Right. So who in the world can you trust? And then if you break it down even further, so we're talking about as if our, these persons are outside of us. But imagine if that your husband was the one that got caught out there.
Wow.
You got to bring that little home. What if that's your sister that got pregnant by somebody's pastor or whatever? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? Again, we're not, I'm not condemning anyone. I'm asking, how do you deal with that? And it's more especially, how do you deal with that with love? Because that's not easy to do. It's not. And how do we make sure that we keep hope alive? How do we make sure that we keep love alive?
Right.
How do we try to love on each other in this whole situation? We're coming up on, even though we're putting, and what's funny is that, most years, you're so concentrating on the holidays, right?
Right.
Like, you don't even realize that in a little more than a week it's Halloween, right? Because that's not what you see. On the news, like, people are talking about the pumpkin patches and, all those type of things. And I know that, if you want to know whether or not we celebrate Halloween or not, you need to listen to our show, from this time last year. But what I'm getting at is that at this point in time, we're and I just want to say a country, especially from a commercialism perspective, right? We're starting to jump into the holiday season now.
Right.
So Halloween, and then, you're like, wait a second, what happened to Thanksgiving? Because all the Christmas stuff is up right now. So people are kind of in a whole nother vibe. They're in a whole nother lane, so even in that, even though I think that we've lost the message of Christmas, overall. But even how do we get into that joyous vibe of wanting to be with family? Because even though right now we can't even be with our family members.
Yeah, they keep changing the guidelines for that in reference to how many people can be gathered. Can you gather with people in your family that are not necessarily part of your household? So that information keeps changing from state to state, sometimes even county to county. So it just makes it really, really difficult. I know some of our annual family gatherings that we would normally go to during the holidays have been canceled. One, because, we have elderly population. We have a lot of family that are out of state. So, they're not necessarily willing to travel and perhaps jeopardize their family members. So it's just really, really tough, because traditionally that's what the holidays are. Outside of it, as you're saying, Christmas is a time to cause us to look closely at the birth of Christ, and celebrate that time. But it's also a time of, just like folks gathered to see Jesus when he was born, it's a time for us to gather with one another in family and have some of those family traditions. And as you're stating, like, hey, a lot of that stuff is not going to happen. And it's again, another time to do some self-revelation and looking within ourselves and in our own families. And what does it mean? Like you said, the commercialization of Christmas has gone so far that, people just don't understand what it's all about.
Right.
So, hey, once this is all over, hopefully when we do get together as a family, it's going to be a blessing. I can recall when Maurice and I started dating, family gatherings were far and in between because his family was crazy.
What? My family?
Joking. Yeah, your family. No, I'm just joking. That sometimes it would spark heated discussions, and because we were dating, he didn't want to scare me off, so we didn't normally go to one another's on the holidays. It wasn't until we became, I guess, engaged or I think we were engaged, that we started to visit with one another's families. So, so things can really be tough at holiday time. So hopefully post-pandemic that we'll have a better appreciation for life. We'll have a better appreciation for one another.
I think even during this pandemic, we need to start it now.
Right.
I think we should have started when it first started because unfortunately that's just where things are. It's really been really hard to understand. Because, like right now for me, with my family, my grandmother is not well. She's living with my mother. And there's only but so much I can do and be around. I can't even hug my mom really. Can't, hug, those normal ways of greeting family members. Like, let me tell you that it was crazy that we were in the car, windows down, things like that, but we're riding around with masks on.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I mean?
When I take my mom out, she sits in the back seat.
So what is that?
Right.
You just don't know.
We don't. And you just want to be safe and cautious and all those things. But, at times like these, when it comes to our leadership, things that we need to do, because as we've talked about tonight, some of them just not living right.
Right.
We need to pray for them. The Bible says in 1 Timothy 2 that we should pray for our leadership. So that's key, that we should pray for them and take them before the Lord. The Lord can certainly change people. And it's evident all through the Bible how people were rough around the edges, and then God kind of blessed them, changed their name, changed their attitude, and that needs to continue to be our prayer for our leadership.
And here's a question. Again, another 1 Timothy scripture. 1 Timothy, the 3rd chapter. For if someone does not know how to manage his own household, how will he care for God's church?
Right.
Think about that for a second. What is that really asking? How can you have someone over, whether he's elected, whether he's appointed, all those type of things? How can you have him manage your house, your church? I mean, because the church should be your house, right? So if you have someone that's over the church that can't manage it, how do you do that? And then in this, it's telling you to go backwards. Like, look at just how he lives overall. If he does not living right, then he's not fit to do anything else.
Right. It's not fit to be that leader.
But I think, unfortunately, as you stated earlier, Kafa, as we talked about earlier, that unfortunately in the church, there's not too many things for certain people to do. And some people, unfortunately, now this is true. Again, we're not questioning anyone's calling, right? But unfortunately, I think the people's calling get confused between being just administration and pastoring. Sometimes just being a church leader and pastoring. And just because you're knowledgeable and you're able to commit some things to memory, and you can pray very well, or how you're a great orator, those type of things does not necessarily mean that you're a pastor.
Correct.
And I think sometimes from a church perspective, we get some of those things mixed up.
Well, I think, again, because we're not diving into the word and really teaching it the way that it should. And again, you have a willing vessel and you place them in that vein and that role, and it's not always, it's just stating the right role. It's not always the right role.
But I know we're going on this topic right here. It's hopefully y'all are paying attention, y'all listening. Hopefully y'all have some questions, some thoughts, some comments, because in reality, it's a lot to unpack. I mean, to be honest, we could talk about this all night. I'm ready to call some people on the line and just have them chime in on this.
Yes.
Because in reality, this is major. This is major. And
we have to be careful.
Right.
Because it is major, so that we don't fall when our leadership falls.
Right.
Not only do we have to pray for them, we have to pray for one another, but we have to be careful not to curse them, not to say ill will things. Yes.
We can't.
No. And it's hard.
Yeah, it is.
Because the news does.
They do.
I flip around from station to station trying to find something that's somewhat down the middle and not so leaning to one person or leaning to another person, or not sharing such negative news. It's hard. It's hard because it can make you fall and feel even more helpless,
right?
More down. So we have to be careful not to curse our leadership or talk down about them. Ezekiel 22 says a little bit about that, and Ecclesiastes 10 talks a little bit about that. So,
well, and then there's another part where it talks about is it Acts? I can't think of. Is it Acts? Where it talks about I can't. Somebody help me out, because it was where it talks about us judging people. So I can't remember where that was. So I think that's a two-edged sword. You get what I mean?
Cursing them is different than rebuking them.
Well, I think the only reason I'm saying that, because people will take that almost as verbatim, and not understand necessarily that there is a difference to some degree.
Okay. We'll tell them there is a difference. We're telling you all right now, there is a difference between rebuke. There's a difference between, because Jesus rebukes people when, it's a difference between chastising,
right.
Or correcting,
right,
versus cursing, we're not here in some of my old favorite movies where I cursed the day you was born, that type of a thing. Like, everything you done did to me.
Everything you gonna do. I'm sorry.
So,
I'm sorry.
You're going. Reel you back in. All right. I'm reeling you back. So, no, we're not cursing. We don't have certain dolls out and we're spewing curses and things like that. We're not studying witchcraft and wizardry or anything like that. No. But we have to be careful what we say with our tongue, because there is power in our tongue and it can cut like a two-edged sword. So we have to be quite careful on how we tear down people. We need to be able to lift them up and prop them up, and because God is high, so prop them up so they can maybe be a little closer to God and bring them to the Lord. We have to, as Marie said, pray and fast and just lay before the Lord for our country, for our world. Because it's not just happening here. It's other places in the world I heard about that are starting to spike back up.
Oh,
and have higher numbers. And it's like little teeny countries. Like, really?
Right.
So, God bless them. And I hope that we all just get through this. But the only way we can do it is we get through it together. So all I can really say is pray for one another. I'm happy I was able to laugh a little bit tonight with you all. Because again, like I said, I started off really, really heavy just with all of the news that's coming our way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have to pray.
Yeah.
We have to pray.
So we would like for y'all to make sure that you like this episode, share it, comment on it.
Yes.
I don't care if y'all I would love for y'all to love it and share it. But even if y'all don't like it, tell us that you don't like it.
Right.
Because so for me, that's positive criticism for me. Mm-hmm. Because then I know what to do next. Now, depending on your comment, I will also know if I stepped on your toes. Or if Kafa stepped on your toes. So, because it's all, again, as Kafa's saying, it's all in the wording. And when you kind of feel sometimes that someone's feeling uneasy, so just comment. That's fine with me. So, stay fit.
Stay fit, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And make sure that you get our merchandise on Amazon. And be sure that you vote.
That's right. Get out and vote.
Vote. And I'm not going to sit here and just say vote on November 3rd, this year, but vote every year, period. Mm-hmm. Okay? So exercise your right. Okay, one way or the other.
And you're going to exercise because the lines are very long that I see.
So you're going to be standing there you could do some cardio. You could do some jumping jacks and things like that, unless you did the mail-in ballot. You can listen to this podcast while you wait in line to vote. There's several. So just go on back. We started over a year ago. So just listen to them all while you wait in line. So we thank y'all very much for tuning in today. Yes, and we love you. And we will talk to y'all soon. God bless you. Peace.
This week's episode has come to an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.
Don't forget that your skin is your largest organ, and the sun can be your skin's worst enemy. Dermatologist recommended Neutrogena products offer the ultimate protection for your skin. From makeup remover wipes to Hydro Boost Water Gel Facial Moisturizer, BJ's has your entire lineup of Neutrogena skincare products. And now through December 3rd, save $4 on any Neutrogena product at BJ's. Love your skin back and save now through December 3rd, only at BJ's.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.